This video addresses two issues. One is, how does copyright and fair use work on YouTube? And second is, how might intellectual property considerations factor into what you post or do not post on YouTube? This video gives no legal advice. You are solely responsible for your own content on YouTube and for following YouTube policies. There are really two parts to understanding copyright on YouTube. One is to protect your own intellectual property. If you are putting things up on the internet through the YouTube platform, you are making them available to the public, and therefore you are making yourself liable to some types of exposure. Obviously, when you post videos on YouTube, you want to avoid infringing on anyone else's copyright. This is, I think, pretty self-explanatory. The other side of the story, however, is that you want to protect your own intellectual property. If you are putting things up on YouTube, you are making them available to the internet always and forever. And even if you take a video down later, you may not be able to erase it entirely. It is entirely possible that somebody else has made a copy of your work and saved it for themselves, and maybe even published it or reused it on another platform. So if you're an academic who is sharing research results, or preliminary research findings, or something proprietary in your teaching, you want to be very mindful of copyright and its potential repercussions for you. Infringing on someone else's copyright can be very serious, not just from an ethical standpoint, but also from the practical standpoint in that YouTube, if it believes that you have infringed someone else's copyright, may take down your video. They may even shut down your channel. Before you launch your channel, we recommend that you Google YouTube copyright or YouTube fair use and read all of the YouTube policies related to copyright, fair use, and permissions. These are company policies. They're not laws. They change whenever the company wants to change them. And you have to understand how they might apply in whatever jurisdiction you are making videos in. So YouTube will typically try to apply whatever the local laws are from the country that you're in to the content, but the company is still doing its own interpretation of the law. You want to be aware that YouTube will take unilateral action, sometimes based on just what a bot determines is a copyright match. YouTube will review all videos that are uploaded to its platform for copyright infringement or copyright matches. A copyright match may just mean that you're using somebody else's copyright material, but in an approved way. This could be a fair use way, or it could be that the copyright holder has given other people blanket permission to reuse their content, but with certain restrictions. So for example, if you use an excerpt from a film, and let's say you do a voiceover and you're describing that film, or use a snippet of music, you may not be able to monetize the video, but the copyright owner may be able to monetize your video and post ads there without your permission and get revenue from it. So typically when you post a video, YouTube will do a review of that video after it's been uploaded and look for copyright matches. If they find matches, then they will report them to you and they will give you several options. One is that you can trim out the segment that has the copyrighted material in it, and this will remove any copyright conflict, and therefore you are free to just claim it as your own intellectual property. In some cases, however, they will block you from publishing that content. So the copyright owner has not given permission for it to be shared with the general public by someone else. In that case, you have a couple options. In the case that you disagree with what YouTube has decided, you can appeal. You can write a written rationale. But if YouTube finds that you are wrong, they can take further action against you. And again, this can result in negative repercussions for your channel as a whole. The safest policy for YouTube is to upload only content for which you own the copyright. If this is not possible, however, and you are using copyrighted material, don't worry, this can be okay as long as it is fair use. And typically YouTube defines fair use as some substantive modification of the original. If you are reusing someone else's content like a video or a sound in an approved fair use way, you do have the legal right to use that. But again, keep in mind that fair use and copyright designations will differ based on jurisdictions. The types of material that are most likely to be flagged include things like music and video, especially videos that appear elsewhere on YouTube. But it could be any type of content that appears in YouTube's own proprietary intellectual property database that their bots use to try to match your content against other works. And remember that, at least in North America, the copyright period can be quite long. Sometimes it's 50 or even 70 years after the death of the original author. So you can have works from the 1930s or the 1920s that are still under copyright, even if they seem like it's old and the person has long since passed away. It may be owned by a corporation or by their estate. Again, there are fair uses of copyrighted material, and so you are not prohibited from using all copyrighted material. But you do want to read the YouTube policies carefully to judge what is allowed and what is not allowed. Serious copyright violations will get you what YouTube calls a copyright strike. So this is when YouTube's bots have found a match between your content and someone else's. YouTube notifies them, they review your content, they say, I own that content, and that person is not allowed to publish it. They are doing an unauthorized upload and publication, and therefore they are in violation of my copyright. YouTube will contact you, they will make your video no longer public, and they will say a copyright strike has been issued because we have listened to a complaint and we have determined that the complaint is valid based on the evidence provided by the copyright holder. So if you get a copyright strike, what that means is that you can continue producing content, you cannot show that particular video. If you dispute that the other person owns copyright over the content, you have to file an appeal, and then you go through the YouTube appeals process. But you cannot just appeal and say, I disagree, and have no repercussions if you're wrong. If you don't have any counter evidence and you can't prove that the other person is wrong, you may be liable to further action from YouTube. So they treat it as like a legal utterance on your part if you're contesting a copyright strike. So again, take a very close look at the copyright strike policy, because that's definitely something you want to avoid. If you do get a copyright strike, it's not the end of the world. YouTube will just require that you go to a copyright school and you take a quiz and you have to pass, get all of the answers correct about what is fair use, what is not fair use. And then if you do pass, that copyright strike will expire within 3 months. However, it is a 3 strikes and you're out policy. So if you get 3 strikes, then indeed they will shut down your channel and they will prevent you from opening any other channels. So the key thing to realize here is that YouTube can act unilaterally, that they make their own policies, they enforce their own policies, they change them whenever they want, and all you can do is appeal. So it can be very expensive if you get into a big copyright claim. So the best policy is to play it safe, but also to stand up for your rights. As far as protecting your own intellectual property, the best thing is to think twice before you post. Again, if you post, it is out there on the internet forever, potentially. Even if you make it an unlisted video, people who you do not authorize may still be able to get access to the link and watch it. They may be able to make a copy, and it could become a giant game of whack-a-mole in trying to track people down who are using your material in unauthorized ways. As academics, we also have to be very careful about our own proprietary research and teaching materials. Are you sharing preliminary findings from an ongoing research project? Is this part of an article or a book project that is not yet published? Maybe it's still under peer review. Maybe you're only in the drafting mode. So is this really the right moment for you to share this via the YouTube platform? You want to think about that very carefully based on your career stage. You also want to remember that even if you're the author of a particular work, like a work that's already been published, you may not own the copyright. It may be owned by a journal or by another type of publisher. So you want to check first that you have permission to adapt your own work for the YouTube platform. And of course, beyond the YouTube regime, we also want to be mindful and ethical in how we cite other sources and give credit when it's due. So when in doubt, cite. So if you're drawing on someone else's material in a video lecture that you're making, of course, if you include text on screen indicating the source of your information, that's a very good practice, or just including something at the end of the video saying which sources you are drawing on. This is the type of scholarly good practice that we all take for granted, but when you're publishing online and publishing in video and it's you in front of the camera or it's your voice and voiceover, it always pays to be scrupulous.